Hello everyone, welcome back to Trek a Day. As I said in the previous video, we're talking about the impending DVD and Blu-ray release of Star Trek Prodigy Season 2. There's a bunch of other Star Trek news that came out very recently that I wanted to discuss, and sadly, I kind of want to talk about it because the majority of it is very disappointing and negative. Very disappointing that even some of the things I was more curious about or looking forward to, I am much more worried and not looking forward to as much any longer after a few teaser trailers came out and some more information. Starting off with the one that really has everyone kind of up in arms and is making the rounds and has been this bizarrely, unifyingly terrible The Strange New Worlds Season 3 teaser. I try not to participate, but I see all the time the constant infighting within Star Trek between people that like Discovery, people that hate Discovery, and mixed opinions on Strange New Worlds. But it's been interesting to see a lot of the same names, handles, pictures of people that I'm noticing that are always kind of combative and arguing are all completely unified, seemingly, in saying, wow, this is bad. The Strange New Worlds Season 3 teaser is horrendous, awkward, and really worrying that this is something they chose to show as the first real peek into the next season of Strange New Worlds. I'm very worried about the third season of that show. In general, Strange New Worlds has kind of been odd to where I talked a little bit on the community page. Again, if you don't follow that, sometimes the daily activity for this channel for Trek a Day is on that page. Sometimes it's not like a true video, sometimes I'll put up a discussion or some images and things like that there, so make sure you follow that page if you kind of want the whole package. Talk about Strange New Worlds. It was something that, for me, started off with a lot of promise to give some real good traditional Trek, because right now Trek, the one thing is that it has a lot of variety. Love it or hate it, the one thing that I think is a positive is the huge variety in types of shows, so that there's kind of something for everyone, no matter what type of Star Trek fan you are. And I always thought, Strange New Worlds, when it was coming out, okay, this is going to be the one that's more for someone like me, who's more of an old school Trekkie, more of a fan of traditional Trek, and it kind of did that, and when it does that, it does it really, really well. But then, over time, it's had more and more issues and has turned into a little more of a Star Trek variety show and has gone way too bizarre and comedic and really like big swings with a lot of the things that they're trying. And it feels very disappointing because of what it could have been and what it kind of started as and what I wanted it to be. And it's trying to do things that other Star Trek shows are already doing, so it's kind of not really working within the place that it needs to be. And then this teaser trailer, we have so many issues. I mean, in general, Strange New Worlds has weird comprehensions of race and culture issues, and this solidifies that in this very short preview. In the genetic manipulation to make everyone into Vulcans also now completely changes their mindset to be Vulcan, and in a way that feels like it's confusing culture with race and not understanding Vulcan culture at all, and the importance of the huge cultural shifts that and the history of that culture and how much discipline it takes to be logical. It's not a natural state for Vulcans, and it gets so many things bizarrely just wrong and confused, and it feels awkward and none of it works. And they had a whole, like, one of the best episodes of Strange New Worlds was all talking about genetic manipulation and the ethical issues in relation to Khan, and then they're doing this, and that doesn't even get into the idea of how that's technologically absurd what they're doing, especially for the time frame that it takes in compared to the cosmetic surgery and things to full scanners and stuff from later eras. I mean, there's just you could do an entire 10-15 minute video just analyzing that, everything that's wrong with what they showed off in those scenes. And then not only is it just bizarre and seemingly terrible from the bit of a preview that we've seen in far as the content of the storytelling and just the general tone, but then you have really bizarre, out of place music and cinematography that everything about it just feels off and wrong, and it really has me worried that that's something they chose to show to kind of promote season 3, that, oh my gosh, what is this season going to be? So now I'm more worried about Stranger Worlds season 3 than I am excited. And then we got another teaser trailer, one that I was curious about, and I'm kind of wondering what it's going to be like. And I'm still, obviously, all these things I'm still going to give a shot. I'm always, first impressions are one thing, not going to stop me from at least giving it a chance. But the Section 31 movie, what the heck was that too? I mean, 2 teasers in a row that were just bafflingly terrible. The Section 31, again, wasn't sure quite what to expect. I expected something a little more of a gritty spy movie with more flashy action added into it, and I don't know what we got. It looks, there's nothing recognizably Star Trek in that entire thing, and everything about it just, it looks horrible. And even Michelle Yeoh, who I think is a fantastic actress, and I grew up watching lots of Hong Kong action movies. I grew up watching her, and then seeing her Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and just so many different things. And I feel like she always does a great job as long as she is given good material to work with. And obviously we haven't seen the Section 31 movie yet, but just from the little bit that I saw, even she felt off. Like, everything about it felt wrong. So this is kind of a 2 for 2. Oh my gosh, what's happening? Looks terrible. And then we have more news for some upcoming shows we don't know a ton about yet. One that's kind of an idea in the works, might be happening, and then another that is definitely happening. We're finally finding out actors that are going to be in it, and both of them I want to talk together because they're related to Tawny Newsome. And one is the Academy show, which we're going to find out a lot of the lead actors that are going to be in it, as far as the cadets and as far as the instructors. And it's cool that the Doctor is going to be back. I think he will do well. I loved what they did with his character in Prodigy, so I think that could be cool. I'm mixed on the idea of the Academy because of the era it takes place in. I'm really not happy that it's a direct continuation off of Discovery, but you never know, like, how much does that really impact this show, because it's very different. We'll see what goes into it, and I still want to give it a shot. And the other thing too is, even if you really dislike Discovery, and there are a lot of it is very Discovery heavy, and some of the cast members, the adult cast, sometimes a character in a different context of a different series can be presented very differently. So even if, say, you really didn't like Tilly in Discovery, maybe she'll be presented in a way that is enjoyable in the Starfleet Academy. You never really know, so I'm not writing off anything in Academy just at first glance, or names that are characters that are attached, because you never really know without the true context, and it could end up being good. You never know. And part of it is, I really have faith in Tawny Newsome's desire to make very Star Trek feeling Star Trek, but she's obviously not handling this or the other series I'm going to talk about single-handedly. So when there's a lot of creatives involved, no one has one direct control. You never know. But just in interviews and commentaries for like Lower Decks DVDs and things like that, she, to me, comes across as one of the few people behind modern Star Trek that I feel is a genuine, lifelong Trekkie. I really 100% believe she is a hardcore Star Trek fan, and I have faith in her goodwill towards any Star Trek project, so that makes me more positive in wanting to see stuff she's working on, but also, not one creative is in control of everything, so how much will that influence that, and this other idea that's come up that she is a part of, which they are describing as a live-action comedy. Federation outsiders serving a gleaming resort planet find out their day-to-day exploits are being broadcast to the entire quadrant in a show that is apparently going to feel like something like The Office or Parks and Rec. And just that idea, I mean, we don't know anything beyond a general concept now, but just that idea sounds like the worst concept for a Star Trek related show I've ever heard pitched in my life. That sounds horrible. I'm trying to picture a live action Star Trek The Office, and that sounds unbearable. I can't believe this is even something that's being considered. So it's just more mixed or bad news piled on top of more and more bad news. And it's really disappointing because I had a lot of hope for some of these projects possibly being surprisingly good. And again, they're not all out, so you never know. But let's try and look at kind of keep an optimistic viewpoint, especially when we get surprises every once in a while, like Prodigy Season 2. I mean, I will sing the praises of that for what it is. It is something that, even though, a lot of people have not watched it because it's an animated kids show, and, I'm not a fan of the animation style, and, it is a kids show, it's something a little more geared towards that demographic, but I feel like that shouldn't stop you from watching it, particularly once you get into Season 2, because I was shocked with how amazingly genuinely Star Trek it felt, and how fantastic the writing was for you don't think of something aimed for that demographic having that level of quality in the overarching story content and in the characters, and in a way that even an adult audience can appreciate. So that was a big surprise. So because we occasionally get these things that are a big surprise, that are good, even though there is sort of a sea of the mediocre or disappointing, that I was hoping maybe some of these upcoming projects could be another big surprise. So my hopes aren't high, though. The one thing that I am looking forward to, because the one teaser that, alright, there could be some real good here, you never know, is Lower Decks Season 5. And that's, again, a show that, when it first aired, and those first couple episodes, I really, I do not like, and I was in the camp of really disliking Lower Decks, but when I gave it another chance and rewatched it, and the humor is still too crude and bombastic and annoying for my taste. I really don't like 90% of the humor aspect of Lower Decks, but you can kind of look beyond it, and what's underneath there is some of the best genuine Star Trek we've had in decades. There's some really good stuff in there, and even when the humor is not a style that I personally enjoy, the heart's always in the right place. Like, it's really made by Star Trek fans for people that love Star Trek. It genuinely is, and I think that's another show that, weirdly, that's the weird spot they're at with Star Trek currently, is that some of the best stuff coming out is the animated kids show and the animated comedy show. And that's great that those shows are great, but to me, as a franchise as a whole, that feels like a real low point when in a way, side shows is kind of a thing. We have a big franchise like that. You have your main meat and potatoes. This is just tried and true Star Trek, or your dramatic Star Trek, and then you have your kids show, and you have a comedy show. You have your variety. But when the real core stuff is no good, that's a problem. When some of the stuff that is more adjacent is the better content, it really does not bode well for what's going on, and we haven't heard quite yet what the new merger is going to do as far as affecting Star Trek in the future. But yeah, things were looking a little, I would say, kind of gray towards the beginning of this year, entering into this phase of Star Trek where there's some stuff I was a little worried about, but positive. You never know what's going to be great. And now I feel like things aren't gray, it's a cloudy sky. I really am feeling disheartened with what we saw from a lot of this stuff. I really don't have a lot of hope for the projects that are upcoming. And that's really sad, because hope for the future is one of the most important elements of Star Trek that I've always loved my entire life, and not really having that excitement is pretty disappointing. But hey, you never know, maybe something will be surprising. Maybe Strange New Worlds, that teaser they showed, is the worst thing in the season and it's fantastic. We'll find out, hopefully. But anyway, the thing I'm looking forward to the most is probably Lower Decks Season 5, just because I feel like when that show boils itself down past all the crude humor to its real core of Star Trek stuff, they can actually tell really good, fun stories with some good characters. There's a lot of good stuff in there if you stick with it and you know where to find it. And so I think that could end up being one of the better outings of Star Trek for this year. But other than that, man, I am just really disappointed in what we saw. I'd love to hear your thoughts below, and thank you for joining me on Trek a Day. I'll see you again tomorrow. And again, pay attention to that community page. Not everyone watches that. Some people just kind of watch just the videos, but if you really want to get everything Trek a Day, something a little bit every day, just to have a little bit of Star Trek in your life, I do stuff there a lot, especially lately. So I'll be seeing you around, and thank you for watching.